Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I am a member of the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, one of the civic partners for our show. Today, my guest is Andrea Montgomery. Andrea is the director of the Office of the Aging here in St. Lawrence County, and she's going to give us an update on the work they are doing on behalf of our seniors. Andrea, welcome back to North Country Matters. It's been a while since we've had you on the show,
It
so I'm
has
glad you're
been.
back.
Oh, happy to be back. It's always a great time.
It is. May is Older Americans Month, and our seniors are an important part of our communities. In fact, New York has the fourth largest population of older adults in the United States, with 3.5 million New Yorkers age 65 or older. That's been a rise of 31% in the last 10 years. The state population of adults aged more than 60 years is projected to grow 5.3 million by 2030, and those over 80 are expected to exceed 1.2 million. So that's a lot of folks that are going to need the services that offices like yours provide all across the state.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a very large influx of
It
demand
is.
for service.
So in order to meet the needs of that growing population, a lot of planning has to take place. I did a North Country Matters show last year with the St. Lawrence County Planning Office, who were doing some work on this issue. So what is your office doing to prepare for what a lot of people are now calling the silver tsunami?
Sure. The first thing that we have started doing during the budget season was advocacy. Not that we only advocate one time a year. We certainly do that year round. But when the governor's proposed budget came out and it didn't really include seniors, and certainly the need, the statistics you gave are staggering of what's coming and certainly what's already here. So advocating for more funding in our federal, state, and local budgets, but really the federal and state governments need to be kicking in a lot more. Because our county governments end up, catching all the rest and putting in and matches of, over $1 million in some cases because we're just so critically underfunded.
That is certainly a very true statement. And one of the things that we know that a sad fact of life for too many seniors is the loss of income as they retire. In fact, 1 in 8 people age 65 and older in New York are living in poverty, and that poverty is often made much worse by escalating healthcare costs as we age. But there are programs that can help. So talk to us a little bit about some of the housing and food benefit programs that are geared towards older New Yorkers that your agency can help them access.
I think it's really important in St. Lawrence County. We do have a large majority of our seniors living just above poverty levels. So it makes it very difficult when they're not eligible for certain entitlement programs. But, when someone's struggling to buy food, pay for their medications, we always encourage them to call our office because we can walk them through all the program services that may be available to them. But certainly folks knowing about the SNAP benefits, knowing about HEAP benefits. Now it's HEAP cooling season. There are some programs, if someone has Medicaid, that they might be able to hire their own caregiver. So there's a lot of different options if someone's in need. I think the most important thing is for folks to reach out and just explore their options or say, hey, I need help with this. What is available for me?
That's often the case, is that there is help available, but people don't quite know how to access it. They don't know who to call. They're not sure how they're going to be received if they make a call. So there's a lot of trepidation sometimes about just picking up the phone and making a cold call. But hopefully, people will hear what you have to say and actually say, hey, I can call her. Somebody in that office is going to have an answer for me. So
Absolutely. We have wonderful people who that is what they do all day is they help people link them to the programs and services they need.
that's right. So you mentioned a minute ago about doing advocacy about during the budget process this year, and your agency was only one of many that were working on
Mhm.
advocacy for the entire spectrum of care needs, from child care right straight through to elder care. And everybody was pretty much disappointed in the budget. It really was a moral failure in many ways. It did not help the caregiving population who needs the care or the people who do the work. And both of those both of those are such important parts of the caregiving world. So we saw, in fact, the closure of the county's only assisted living home this spring, which really just gutted
Mhm.
the program for people who need a place to stay. And there's nothing more expensive, as we know, than uh, having to move into a nursing home. In this state, it costs about an average of $140,000 a year to keep
Yeah.
someone in a nursing home. If we can keep them at home, it costs much, much less. So what, Andrea, are some of those alternatives for home care? You have worked with folks who provide the care and who are trying to find the care. So talk to us about what home care means, not only to the individual, but for their family and for our society at large.
Well, certainly, I think every older adult that we come across, wants to age in place, and they need to do so in a safe and healthy manner. But in order to do that, we need the services available to them. So home health aides are a critical component of keeping those older adults safe in their homes. But as you mentioned, it can be very difficult to find an aide. It can be very costly. If someone doesn't have Medicaid and isn't, or if they do and aren't approved for the number of hours of care they need, it's really hard for families to piece together. It's very hard on the caregivers. I think the biggest thing that people don't really understand is that there's not 24/7 care available in St. Lawrence County. If you needed 24/7 care, you would need to go to a nursing home. And as you said, that's becoming a very, dicey option. Are there going to be beds available? We have clients right now going to many other counties because the wait lists at our nursing homes are just too long and they need the help sooner. So I think, again, as we talked about before, when someone has that question of how can I get an aid, we're happy to try to, depending on whether they have Medicaid, Medicare, both, whether looking at private pay options, we're happy to try to help them figure it out and linking it. But, understanding as well that, private pay, you are looking at least probably $25 to $35 an hour. You can't find anybody who's going to come in for $10 an hour anymore. It just doesn't exist. And particularly for respite for overnights, it's even more costly.
Yes, and one of the problems in a county like St. Lawrence, which is geographically so huge, is that if someone is providing care, they're often providing it for more than one person, and they've got travel times between the locations. So that adds to their personal costs as well as to it reduces the number of hours that they can work for people who really need this care. So we need to find a way to make the caregiving work better than it does now. That's for sure, don't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's been some progress in making a little livable wage for home healthcare aides, but a lot more needs to be done. On average, it's still between $15 to $20 an hour. And that's really hard with the inflation rates. It's hard for anybody to try to, survive on, raise a family, own a home, or pay rents. I mean, rent in this area is incredibly high. So absolutely, there's a lot more that needs to be done on the state level to raise the wages so that more people will be recruited to this field. And certainly it takes a special, caring, really empathetic, hardworking person to be successful in this field.
Yeah, that's very true. And they may do the work because they love it, but they also have to be able to feed their families and live. So it
Absolutely.
can't just be doing it for the fun of it. They have to have a living wage, as you say. And as that caregiving, whether it's provided by a spouse or a family member or by someone paid to come into the home, is very stressful work. It's physically demanding, it's emotionally demanding, but you have a program to help caregivers. Tell us all about that and how people can access it, because that kind of support is critical to keeping people in the field, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. Sometimes when we can finally link someone to respite services, they say, even 2 hours a week, I now feel like I could do this for a lot longer. I was at my breaking point. We hear that quite frequently. So yes, we have a caregiver support program that offers respite opportunities. We work with the Alzheimer's Association. We have a grant through them, and we partner with different home care agencies to try to have respite opportunities for our caregivers. We know it's the highest burnout job there is. It's the most difficult job, and it's one that we all share that's universal. We will all be caregivers at some point in our lives, whether we are caring for children or eventually an elder adult in our life, friend, family, we will all be a caregiver. So we also have a wonderful support group that I'm always happy to tell people about. Support groups are tricky to start. You don't really know if you're going to have regular attendance. And we've been very fortunate that our caregiver support group has been meeting here in Canton for over a year. And we keep getting new members. We have our same folks who come every month, but then we also have new members coming. So if anyone's interested, it's the second Tuesday of the month here at the community services building in the Human Services building in Canton, 10 o'clock in the morning. Certainly call our office to learn more. And we're looking to expand that. This group has been so successful. We know there's a lot of caregivers who can't come to Canton. So we're looking to expand into other areas. So if people have suggestions or a need, if they could let us know. We have a survey going around right now. It's available on our website, a caregiver support group survey, trying to see where else we could start one in the county, as well as a virtual option. We know it's hard for our caregivers to get away. Oftentimes they can't leave their loved one alone. So we are looking at a Zoom option, or someone who doesn't have a computer could just call in using their regular phone, but it would still be an opportunity to connect with others, to learn, how to better support themselves and take care of themselves, because we know that's critical. If the caregiver doesn't take care of themselves, then they often suffer their own health consequences.
Well, and the last thing we need to do is to multiply health consequences in this particular field, that's for sure. So, and the fact that you've had so much success in the first year and you're looking to expand means you've really hit onto an issue that needs more attention, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I don't know that enough people really understand until you're in it. How difficult that it is, and they're surprised, or they think there's going to be more support. Those folks who bring their loved one home who thinks there's 24/7 care, and then they're in it, and they're trying to do it, maybe having some of their own health difficulties, or it could be someone who's still working full time. A lot of times we have caregivers who are still raising their own families, working full time, trying to take care of mom or dad. It's really a high burnout section, and I appreciate when we can bring more notice to it and let our caregivers know, that they don't put themselves on the list, they're going to end up not being able to take care of their loved one.
Well, that is, and then everybody suffers. The whole family suffers. So yeah, that's
Absolutely.
a great point. So way back 4 years ago, at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, your agency was one of the first ones to shut down services at your public meal sites. And as our understanding of the health consequences of the COVID crisis grew, that was a really wise precaution that you took. And it turned out that much of the rest of society followed your lead and shut down during that crisis. But with the closure of the congregate dining sites, the need to feed our senior population certainly didn't change. In fact, it only grew, because the folks who used to be coming out no longer were doing that. And you have always relied heavily on volunteer drivers to make the Meals on Wheels program work. And so, Andrea, talk to us a little bit now about what the status of those congregate dining sites are, what your needs for volunteer drivers are, and how has the program grown through time? Do you see
Sure.
more and more need to fill?
Yeah, 100%. So we saw with COVID, once we shut down the congregate dining, we were able to, with the state office for the aging was wonderful and made our funding sources very flexible. So anybody who needed food, if they were a congregate diner, we could move on to home delivered meals. So what we did was really just take our resources and put it all into delivering meals, because we knew seniors weren't getting out. We knew they weren't able to get to the grocery store, but we still wanted to make sure they were fed and that they were checked on and they were safe. And of course, we took all of the precautions to keep our volunteers and our clients safe. And we doubled our numbers in about a week of what we were serving. And the interesting thing, I think, coming out of COVID, I mean, certainly we're living with COVID now, is that our numbers didn't go down. They have stayed the same and grown. We're talking about the silver tsunami, and that's certainly going to impact our numbers, but also inflation. The last year or two, honestly, have been quite hard. Grocery prices are through the roof. People who have never called for help before are calling us and saying, I can't afford to go to the grocery store. And maybe they don't qualify for SNAP benefits. So we're linking them to food pantries and those types of things. So yes, our home delivered meal program is critical. Those are for the meals for folks who have 2 or more chronic diseases that make them primarily homebound, not that they have to stay at their house all the time. And it's a hot meal delivered Monday through Friday to them. And more importantly, it's a social visit, right? It's that wellness check. It's that connection to the outside world. Many of our clients, it's the only person they'll see all day is that meal driver. So certainly it's incredibly rewarding. We are always looking for more home delivered meal drivers. I have about 23 nutrition staff and currently 26 home delivered meal routes. Plus we have 5 congregate dining sites open. So if you do the math on that, you realize that we cannot do it without the incredible support of community volunteers. We have some organizations like the Arc Jefferson St. Lawrence and United Helpers who provide an immense amount of support for us. But definitely if someone is looking even a couple hours a week, a couple hours a month to give back to their community and make a real important connection with a senior in their community, or like I say, most routes have at least 20 people on them. And I say, when you're delivering a hot meal, you're the highlight of their day.
Yeah, nobody's going to not answer that door when they knock, are they? So
No,
that's,
absolutely.
and I know my parents, they got Meals on Wheels for a while there before they died. When they were towards the end, we were able to keep them at home. But that was one of the strategies that we used to keep them there, and we knew that they were getting good, nutritious meal. And as you say, that friendly face at the door, even if it was only for a couple of times a week, it was an important social connection. So I recently read that with the COVID lockdowns, a lot of elderly Americans in particular became even more socially isolated than they already were, and they still have not fully rejoined society. More than half of older adults still spend more time at home and less time out than they used to. So this social isolation is a huge problem because it leads to depression, it leads to medical complications and lots of things like that. So how does your office help overcome this lack of socialization by our seniors, and it can have such negative health impacts?
We are for sure seeing this at our congregate dining centers. Those that are not located within housing complexes, the people haven't come back. The diners did not come back after COVID. So we are constantly trying to figure out ways to encourage people to come out for a meal. We're working on recreational opportunities that would happen at our nutrition centers, as well as fitness classes, nutrition education classes, those types of things to encourage people just even for an hour or two to get out. Certainly it's nice weather now. Winter is harder, we know, for folks with the roads and whatnot. So we're really looking at a lot of social, recreational, and educational programming to encourage folks to, leave the comfort of their own homes and connect with the outside world, because we are seeing the effects of COVID amongst our older adults with the depression and mental health issues now as a result of being, cooped up and isolated for so long. We also support our local senior clubs. There is a senior club just about in every single town. And you don't have to live in the town to join the senior club. And I think most of their dues are $5 a year. And I know some people that are in 6 different senior clubs. So, checking that out, seeing what's available, or again, calling our office, because we do have a ton of resources. And if someone lets us know that they need a connection, we can try to help them find that. If we know people in their housing complex We can make introductions, obviously with HIPAA permissions. We of course want to always follow all of the guidelines we need to, but we have a telephone reassurance program for our really vulnerable clients who don't really have anyone in the area. So we have, once a week, a staff member or a volunteer just calls to have a friendly chat, check in on them. How are you doing? And I think I would encourage folks that even if they don't do it through an organization such as ours, check on your elderly neighbor. Stop by, even a couple times a month. Say, hey, can we have coffee? I think that means the world to folks when their community shows them how much they care and that they're not forgotten about. Because I think the biggest thing we hear with older adults is they feel like a forgotten about generation. And I think letting them know that they are a priority and that you do care and you care about their contributions and their stories. You really can't say enough about the wonderful stories that our older adults have, a whole lifetime of experience that we could learn from.
Yeah, you're certainly right about that. And I think one of the important things about that is there's so much ageism in our society. There's such a focus on youth, and we have often forgotten the older folks in our community they were the backbone of our communities. They provided the volunteer services, they did the work, they raised their families, they volunteered for every need that was out there. And now they're not quite as active as they were, and they become almost invisible. So, what you talk about in getting out and making a point of taking care of your neighbors is a really important one, because back in the day, they were taking care of us.
They built everything we are enjoying now, right? They built the foundation of our world, and absolutely letting them know that, they're there. Oftentimes, even saying hello to someone in the store, people don't realize what that means.
Yeah, because you feel so isolated and so anonymous. All of a sudden, it's like when your hair turns gray, it's like you stop being a part of the community, and that's just not the way it should be by any means. I wanted to talk to you a little bit, Andrea. You work pretty closely with the youth bureau in the county, and they have programs where they actually outreach to seniors, don't they? And that's such a nice connection to make.
Yeah, so the youth bureau director is literally right next door to me. So it's quite convenient for Alexa Backus Chase and I to sit together and say, so what can we do? What kind of intergenerational projects? Because again, I think that's win-win all around. It's connecting our older adults with the younger population, as well as, connecting the teens with people. They might not have grandparents that they're close with. They might not have, and certainly the wealth of learning opportunities. So every year we sponsor a few card drives. Youth Bureau is amazing about organizing Christmas cards, Valentine's Day cards. We've had kids make placemats for our congregate dining centers. There's a wealth of opportunities. At one point during COVID, we had a pen pal program that we were doing with the students in different elementary schools and partnering them with an older adult who had expressed a desire to have a pen pal. So we look forward to more opportunities of how we can really dig in and make that long lasting impact.
Yeah, and you're quite right about grandkids and grandparents being isolated. I know most of my grandchildren live out of state, so I don't get to see them as much as I would like to, and certainly as much as they would like either. But it's just the way our very busy lives are these days, isn't it?
Mm.
Another thing, you just partnered with hospice about a program as well, which was another opportunity to meet with a different agency in the county that provides important services. So talk us through a little bit of how that went.
Sure. We are in the process, and certainly we have more dates coming. It's called Packing for Your Life's Journey. Is get your packing list done of everything you need to do so that you can enjoy the ride. Nobody wants to be in crisis in the hospital and realize your loved one doesn't have a healthcare proxy. They don't have a power of attorney. And too often that's what's happening. So hospice, we've partnered to get together for quite a few projects, and we're having a great time going out and really making a topic that is taboo and that people aren't comfortable with, talking about death, planning for death, trying to make it a little bit less heavy. And that's what we explain to them is if you just get it done, you're not constantly thinking about it. If your family knows your wishes, That's really critical. I know I lost my father when I was 25 and he was 57, and we didn't know, did he want to be buried? Did he want to be cremated? And we'd never had those conversations. And I think it's really important they have this wonderful book hospice does called Roadmaps for the Journey's End. It is an all-in-one, everything you need to know and have planned, from your financial information written down, your insurance. Do you have different insurance plans? To things like legacy letters. What would you want your family to know? And as we were saying, the stories. What's your story? When someone passes away, those stories go with them, and what the families would give to have those stories written down. Or nowadays, people can record the stories and in their loved one's voice, put it on video. So we're doing, I think we want to also let everyone know, what are the services hospice has. And honestly, some of the myths that people have about our organization and hospice, that's been kind of fun to dispel those myths and spread factual information so people can make thoughtful choices for as they age. I think the hardest part is when there's an assumption, like we've been talking about 24/7 care. Every single day our phone rings and someone says, well, mom's coming home from the hospital tomorrow and she needs 24/7 care. And it's really hard on certainly the caregiver to hear, and for our staff to have to deliver that information of, okay, no, that's not going to happen. And let's talk about some options, but it's not necessarily going to be what you think it is.
Right, right. And again, it's a process of exploration, really, isn't it? And that's where this program that you partner with hospices is such a great program, because you can get people to start talking about things they're uncomfortable about talking about, but absolutely need to have things written down and things planned out, because otherwise you really leave your family in the lurch. And they don't know, they want to know what you want, and they don't want to have to guess. And so this is a great program that you are offering to folks. So Andrea, one of the things that hopefully will happen this November is that New York State voters will have the opportunity to vote on the New York State Equal Rights Amendment to the state constitution. And that amendment specifically adds protections for the aged and for the disabled. And quite often, of course, as we know, as you age, you become disabled. So you have multiple issues that you're dealing with. How important will it be for the people that you advocate for and that you serve to have that protection in the New York State Constitution?
Vitally important. I don't think we can, state just how much it will mean. Certainly older adults who are returning to the workforce often talk about discrimination, age discrimination. You hear about it all the time happening, unfortunately. So I think knowing, we talked about them being shown that they're a valued member of society. Well, this type of legislation is critical to allow them to know that, right? We are thinking about you when we're making laws to make it illegal for any type of discrimination against you. I think it's really a great legislation that they're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So as we wrap up today, Andrea, what else do you want people to know about the services that the Office of the Aging can provide? Dispel a myth for us.
Dispel a myth. We don't sign people up for Medicare. That's Social Security. So that's another one. We'll help choose Medicare plans. We will help with you to help you pick the best option for you. But we do get a lot of those calls of, are you signing me up? No, that's through Social Security. So I think, really just letting people know that when you say, hey, I wonder, does this exist, this program, this service? Call our office. I think and call us sooner than you think you might need us. Call us to say, hey, what is available? Can you send me some information? I think oftentimes I wish people had called us sooner. We hear from them when something's critical in their life, but then, we talk to them about our health promotion classes or computer classes. We can help them with medical transportation, legal services, and we can do that much younger than they think. We might not hear from them till they're in their 80s when, at 60, maybe they did need some help with legal services. Maybe they did need, medical transportation and didn't know that that was available. Because again, it's like anything. We don't think about it until we need it.
That's true. And the other thing I think that people should also know is that you don't have to be a senior yourself to advocate for a senior in your life. And those are the people who should be calling you as well, because they should be doing that exploration of services before mom or dad need it, shouldn't they?
Mhm. We will talk to anyone of any age. We will help. I say it doesn't matter if it is someone who's caring for a loved one or not. We are just happy to get the information out there, whether it's a adult child of someone, whether it's a concerned neighbor, a pastor, whoever it is in that person's life that they're concerned about. We want to hear from, because then we can reach out to the person in need. If we know about them, we can help them. But if we don't know that there's a need, and oftentimes pride is a huge component of trying to seek help. So it is great to get those phone calls. We can handle it very delicately to check in on the person, because they might not want to admit that they can't afford food. They might not want to admit that they need some home care, or that their Medicare, they need a different Medicare drug plan because their prescriptions have become unaffordable, or they're choosing between food and medicine, which is very often. And I think people would be shocked to know how often that happens. So if you hear of those circumstances, call us, let us know, because we have just wonderful, caring people here, and we will jump through every hoop we can to try to get help to the person in need.
Thank you, Andrea. I know when I called your office a few years ago for help for my parents, people could not have been kinder or uh, more knowledgeable. And that really is what you need, that compassion and that knowledge. And that makes asking for help or finding out what services are available so much easier on everybody.
Mhm.
So thank you for all the work that you and your staff are doing and
Thank
that
you.
you continue to do every day. It makes such a difference in the lives of people in this county.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of the staff and the volunteers, thank you. They're a great group. Certainly some of the best humans out there.
There you go. There you go. So, all right. Thanks again for coming in. And we will have you back a little sooner this time than the last time.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Andrea.
Looking forward to it.
Good. So these conversations are a production of North Country Matters, which is a civic collaboration between the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County and the Potsdam Public Library. Until next time, remember, our North Country matters.